What's up, guys? If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Also, please smash that like button on the video and enjoy the show. How'd you raise this money?
Just any way I could. I mean, basically, I went to, the first part of the case was funded by a plaintiff's law firm in Philadelphia.
What firm?
Cohn, Swift, and Graff. I don't know if you've heard of them.
My dad has practiced out of Philly for a long time.
Yeah, he's probably heard of them. They're well known.
He probably knows them.
They're a small but profitable class action lawsuit firm, and they're good people. And they took this on. So remember I said we took that first trip, came back, filed the lawsuit. They were the law firm that we then went to join our team to file it. And they ended up doing a lot of the financing of the case for many, many years. But over time, Chevron started to make things so intense, so complicated. They started filing all these other cases to attack the original case.
Like how? What do you mean? Like
well, what I mean is, the fundamentals of the story. Let me just cut to the chase about what happened. So, we filed here in the U.S. That period of the case took 10 years, and they got it shifted to Ecuador's courts because they wanted impunity and they didn't want to have a trial in the United States with the jury.
Are you in discovery for 10 years? Is that what you're saying? Or?
In discovery, no, but then we had to litigate the issue where the trial should be. And their tactic always is to drag things out as long as they can. So, and the courts move slowly. You see that now with all these cases against Donald Trump. I mean, it just takes a long time to get to trial, usually. That's
your judge too, right? You were telling me?
Yeah, Lou Kaplan. Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. In any event, it took a while, but eventually that first 10-year period ended, and they won that phase of the battle to some degree. But I'm kind of an intuitive person, and I didn't feel they really won it because I realized what we won out of that phase is they had to accept jurisdiction in Ecuador's courts as a condition of a U.S. judge sending the case from U.S. courts to Ecuador. Had we initially filed in Ecuador, they would have never accepted jurisdiction, would have challenged it. So when we then refiled the case in Ecuador, which is what I would call phase 2 of this long litigation.
What year are we in?
This was in 2003. Okay, 10 years in. We had them. There was going to be a trial. And when you're a big oil company and you're sued by indigenous people, your first goal is to not have a trial. Get rid of the case. So the fact we were able to relatively quickly, once it got moved to Ecuador, we were in a trial 6 months after we refiled the case in Ecuador. That's fast. We had them in a trial.
But they tried to get it moved back, right? Right away?
But they thought we would go away. In other words, the case being financed by U.S. lawyers. U.S. lawyers can't practice in Ecuador. We had to then go down there, find Ecuadorian lawyers to do it, pay them. It just becomes a lot more complicated. So their strategy by moving it to another country was we would give up. That was their first strategy. But when we didn't give up, showed up with Ecuadorian lawyers, we made a trial happen, and that was an enormous victory, a trial where they were forced to submit to the jurisdiction of a court in Ecuador with judges who came from the region, who understood the problem. And suddenly the entire dynamic shifted in a way that I'm like, wow, we could probably have a fair trial here, and the people felt that too. So by seeking to move it down to Ecuador, they, I understand what they were trying to do at the time, but I think there was also a big silver lining to us losing that phase of the battle.
Going back to that 10 years though, getting it pushed there, one of the things that I'm always wondering that I think a lot of people out there, those of us who aren't attorneys, get a little confused by is we know this concept of the powerful will just try to drag it out in court so that you go away, meaning they spend more money, meaning you have to spend more money, they can afford it, you can't, plain and simple. But can you just give us an example of how they can get an argument over where the jurisdiction is can drag out across, I don't know, maybe hundreds of hearings or something across 10 years? To me, layman sitting at home, I'd be like, okay, there's going to be a hearing on, is it going to be there or here? Maybe at that hearing they say, okay, we need discovery for that. Okay, we get one more hearing, we go there, discovery's there, we present the case and it's decided. But that's not how it goes. How would they go in and be raising a new point to say, oh, we got to get another hearing?
So the answer to that is there's not 100 hearings. There's like maybe 10 hearings over 10 years. And the real delays are when they're able to take a preliminary issue like jurisdiction, and a trial judge rules, okay, there's jurisdiction, or there's not jurisdiction, and the losing party then appeals. In other words, prior to any trial, you're appealing these pretrial motions decisions to a higher court. You got to write appellate briefs, and you have argument over that. It can take a really long time, and it's ridiculous, actually, how long it takes. But because the system is so slow, even in a normal case, corporations that are well-funded know this, so they often use the slowness of the system as a way to grind down those of us who bring these social justice, environmental justice cases, as a way to sort of discourage us or make us run out of money, and to really win through procedural hijinks, procedural subterfuge, what they can never win on the claims. In other words, they can't win the claims. I mean, we are right, they are wrong. A court, this case, we won this case. But their hope at that time was we would get so discouraged by the procedural burden of having to keep fighting just to get to trial that we would give up.
Were you having, after the initial case gets filed, and you mentioned it got onto Dan Rather, maybe some of the other channels too, as the case went on, did you start already to find it harder for the media to cover this and get suspicious about the potential relationship between Chevron and advertiser and the media, or did that part come later in the case?
That part came a little later, okay? In the 90s, there wasn't a ton of press coverage. There was some. And it was usually pretty sympathetic to us. And you were like, wow, this is unbelievable. I can't believe what they did down there.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. Please hit that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.